Hey y'all, it is Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. It feels like it's been a really long time since I did my last video. It's only been a week, but I don't know. It's been like the longest week of my life. I don't know why. But this week I want to talk about something that has been going on in my side kind of personal project. As I've been working on pretty much one chapter for probably this entire week. It's a very necessary chapter, but it gave me problems right from the beginning and it took me a really long time to work through them. And partway through I pinpointed the problem to the character that I was working with, the POV character. I realized that I really didn't know him very well, and so I was really struggling to find his voice. But there were problems even before that. This project is a prequel to sort of my big epic fantasy dream project sort of thing. And because of that, since it is like book zero, like ground floor, we are getting to know the world for technically the first time chronologically, there's a lot of stuff that I have to introduce, and especially a lot of characters that I need to introduce at the earliest stage of their arcs. I'm still in like act 1-ish of the story, so I'm still introducing the different settings that I have going on, and this chapter was all about introducing the conflict, planting the seeds of what the potential conspiracy conflict could be in this story, and doing that through a future villain character who is not currently a villain. The thing is though, I've only ever known him as a villain. So I have this understanding of who he is, and then having to jump into his POV to write him as like a good character was really, really difficult. And I actually didn't start from his POV. So let's just look at the problems with this chapter. The first problem was that I started in the wrong person's head. I started in this side character's head and was going to use him to introduce one of my villains, and it just felt wrong. Like from the beginning, I had like a page to 2 pages of just like setting the scene prose, him thinking about stuff, him walking through the setting, observing the setting, and like, yes, you need some of that, but it was feeling like too much. Like, okay, this needs to start at some point. I don't know why I haven't started yet. And then when I introduced the villain through his eyes, it just felt like, this is not how I want us to meet the villain. I don't know, something about it just felt off, like it was the wrong time for her to come in, it was the wrong person to see her or the person for us to meet her through. I don't know. So then I scrapped that, or didn't scrap it, but I moved it down and decided to pick another character to start this chapter with. And I did, and still ended up with a couple pages where it felt like nothing was really happening and it was like, this is boring, I don't understand what's going on here. It took me almost a week to figure out what the solution was, and to use both characters and both POVs within that chapter to introduce that villain from 2 different viewpoints. So I actually ended up using the scene that I originally wrote and the scene that I went back and added later, but I sandwiched them. So I started with one, then I switched to Captain Pax, that first one that wasn't really working, introduced the villain that way, then brought her over into the other character's POV, so that we got to meet her in 2 completely different contexts from the POVs of 2 completely different people. One who doesn't really trust her, and the other one who does trust her but doesn't really like her. And so you got to see kind of 2 sides of her character, which was really what I was going for introducing this villain. I wanted the reader to know that she's good at her job, but that there's also something shady about her, but not to know too much at this point. So I was actually pretty happy with the way it turned out, but it really got me thinking about that issue that I was having of struggling to get into character B's voice. I'll just call him TJ for now. TJ, he's been a villain my entire life. Since I've known him, he's been a villain. And the thing is, he's not been a very deep villain for most of his journey in my writing adventure. For all my early drafts of this project, he was just sort of this like silhouette figure. I didn't really know much about him. In more recent drafts, I've tried to figure out what his backstory was, but still didn't really know exactly what it was. And in my most recent draft, I actually completely revamped his personality and made him into something he was never before. He used to be kind of like the just classic domineering, like maniacal laugh, cardboard cutout villain. In this most recent draft, I turned him into more of like a polite, like pious villain who like really believes that what he's doing is not only right, but like spiritually right for the world, that he's like doing the world a favor in what he's doing. So that was fun to kind of explore a completely new dimension of this character, and it gave me a lot of insight into who he is. But still, when I had to go back and write him young, it was like, who is this guy? Like, I don't know what he sounds like. I don't know what his voice is. I don't know what his struggles are. And it really frustrated me because it's like, how could I have known this character so long and still feel like he's a stranger that I'm meeting for the first time? I don't even think I would have been able to pinpoint that problem if I didn't have other characters that I was so comfortable with to sort of use as contrast. I have another character, Mech, who I've realized I just understand so well, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because we're the same person. Are we the same person? That character, I feel like I just know, like, I know myself. Like, I slip into his POV, I know exactly what he's thinking, how he's gonna respond to things. I know where he came from, I know his past, I know what his hurts are, I know that he has a chip on his shoulder and why he has a chip on his shoulder and what he wants from life, and just, it makes it so easy to write his POV. And then you switch over to TJ, and it's like, wow, I've got nothing. I realize that there's probably like a gazillion YouTubers that have answers for how to find your voice for your character, and I'm sure there's like way better ways. But for me, what made the most difference was sitting down with this character and going, okay, who is he? Where did he come from? What hurts is he carrying? Like, the hurt was especially key, and that kind of comes back to like Susan May Warren's wound in her story equation. That has really unlocked things for me. In order to understand his voice, I needed to understand what drives him, and especially what hurts he's still carrying, because often those two things are kind of together. And once I did that, I was able to unlock a voice that I actually really enjoyed and I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with. But it just really fascinates me that I could be working with this character for like nigh on 7 years, but only when I went back into his past and found the hurt, the wound, the thing that drives him, did I actually find out who he was. What's funny is that I actually had done the story equation with this character before too. Like, I had his wound on paper, but I didn't understand how that practically played into his life until I started writing it. And I had to push through a week of like really difficult stop and start writing to work through that and to figure out what that looks like. Moral of the story, wound is important. Do not forget the wound, because that is a key part of who your character is and it will help you to find their voice. But also, sometimes you just have to slog through. I guess I was expecting it to just be easy because I did his story equation, so like this should be just a piece of cake. But no, I had to kind of trudge through some difficult writing. I had to push and feel sometimes like this isn't working or this is just not going as smoothly as I wanted to, but I had to push through that in order to get to a place where I was like, you know what? That chapter was actually pretty good. Like, I'm happy with it. It didn't come easily because I was meeting him for the first time, but it's only going to get easier from here, I hope. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and comment below with a time where you really struggled to get into a character's voice for the first time, and how did you break through that? And as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.